They say you never really know someone until you've seen what they do when they think you'll never find out. I used to laugh at that. I used to think trust was something sacred, something built over time that couldn't be faked. But now, every time I hear those words, they echo inside my head like a cruel reminder. My name's Daniel Carter, 43, and if you'd ask anyone about me 2 years ago, they would have said I had the kind of life every man dreams of. A steady career as a firefighter in Austin, Texas, a beautiful wife, and a home filled with laughter. I wasn't rich, but I was proud of what I had built with my own 2 hands. My wife's name was Rachel, 39, graceful, kind, with that warm smile that could make a bad day disappear. We'd been married for 15 years, 15 years that I thought were built on loyalty, honesty, and love. For a long time, I believed I was a lucky man. We had a rhythm, coffee together before my shifts, late-night movies when I got home, the little things that make you think your life is solid. But cracks have a way of forming quietly, long before you notice the walls are about to collapse. It started small. She became distant, distracted. At first, I blamed myself. Long shifts, exhaustion, missed anniversaries. I thought maybe I'd stopped giving her the attention she deserved. So I tried harder. Flowers, surprise dinners, little notes before leaving for work. She smiled, said she appreciated it, but her eyes were somewhere else. Then came the night everything began to change. It was a Friday. I'd been called to a late emergency, a warehouse fire on the outskirts of town. We didn't get back until close to 2 a.m., covered in ash and sweat, too wired to sleep. Instead of heading straight home, I stopped at a 24-hour diner for some coffee. I called her, just to hear her voice, but she didn't answer. No big deal, I thought. Maybe she was asleep. When I pulled into our driveway, her car wasn't there. That was strange. Rachel wasn't the type to go out that late, not without telling me. I went inside and the silence hit me like a punch. No lights, no sound. Just that heavy stillness that tells you something isn't right. She came home around 3 a.m., trying to walk quietly through the door, not realizing I was sitting in the dark living room. "Where were you?" I asked. She froze. "Oh, hey, you scared me. I was with Emma. Her husband's out of town. She didn't want to be alone." Her voice sounded casual, but her hand trembled when she set her purse down. "At 3 in the morning?" She was upset. We were talking. You know how she gets. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I did. But something in her eyes, something flickered there. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. That night I didn't press it. I let it go. Because love makes fools of us all. And I was a world-class idiot. Over the next few weeks, the distance grew. She started guarding her phone like it was a treasure chest. New perfume, new clothes, gym membership. I told myself not to be paranoid. Every man who's been betrayed tells himself the same lie right before his world collapses. Then, one afternoon, while folding laundry, her phone buzzed on the couch. I glanced over. The screen lit up with a message, "Can't stop thinking about last night." My chest tightened. The name on the screen made it worse. Jason Miller. Jason had been my friend since college. We'd played baseball together, shared beers, birthdays, everything. He was the guy who stood next to me as my best man at our wedding. I stared at that message for a long minute, my hands shaking. When Rachel came out of the bathroom, I was still sitting there holding her phone. "Who's Jason thinking about?" I asked quietly. Her face went pale. "Daniel, don't!" "Answer me." "It's not what you think." "That's what they all say." She tried to take the phone, but I pulled it back. "You've been seeing him?" Her eyes filled with tears, and in that silence, I had my answer. "Daniel, please." "How long?" "A few months," she whispered. I felt the air leave my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I stood up, walked out the front door, and just kept walking.
down the street, past the neighbors' houses, past everything familiar. The night was quiet except for the pounding of my heart in my ears. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my truck staring at nothing while a part of me died. The next morning she tried to caulk, tried to explain. She said she felt lonely, that I was distant because of my work. She said Jason was there when she needed someone. I wanted to scream. I was risking my life while you were in his bed. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I packed a bag and left, moved into a small apartment downtown. For weeks, I barely ate, barely spoke. Everyone at the station noticed, but I told them it was stress. Nobody knew the truth except me and Rachel. One night, Jason showed up at my door. The nerve of that man. "Dan," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. It just happened. We didn't mean for it to." I laughed a bitter sound. "You didn't mean to. You don't just accidentally end up in someone else's bed, Jason." He looked down. "I ended it. It's over." "Oh, so now I'm supposed to thank you?"
He didn't answer, just stood there, like he was waiting for forgiveness that would never come. When he left, I realized something. He looked scared, not just guilty, and that gave me an idea. I spent the next few weeks in silence, letting them both think I'd given up. Rachel kept texting me, apologies, pleas, messages that I ignored. I needed time to think, to plan, because if I was going to lose everything, I wasn't going down quietly. I started small. Jason was a contractor, ran a small business doing home renovations. I knew he wasn't always clean with his paperwork. He'd bragged before about cutting corners to save money. So I did some digging. Turns out, he'd been falsifying invoices for a city project, overcharging for materials. I made a few anonymous calls, to the city office, to a local journalist. Nothing dramatic, just little seeds of truth dropped in the right ears. Within a month, the story broke. Local contractor under investigation for fraud. His name was all over the news. I watched from my apartment, coffee in hand, as the man who'd slept with my wife watched his empire crumble. Rachel called me that night, crying. "You did this, didn't you?" I didn't answer. "You ruined him!" I laughed softly. "No, Rachel. He ruined himself. I just gave the truth a little push." After that, she stopped calling me. And for a while, I thought that was it. I'd gotten my revenge, and maybe that was enough. But the thing about betrayal is, it never really leaves you. It lingers, like smoke after a fire. Months passed. The divorce went through. She got the house. I didn't care. I just wanted peace. But one afternoon, I got a call from her mother. "Daniel," she said softly, "Rachel's not doing well." I didn't know what she meant until she told me. Jason had left town. His business was gone, his reputation destroyed. And Rachel? Well, she'd lost everything too. Her friends, her job, her confidence. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then came the letter, handwritten, from Rachel. She said she missed me, that she realized too late what she had thrown away. She said she wanted to see me one last time, to talk, not as husband and wife, but as two people who once loved each other. I stared at that letter for an hour before I decided. I would go, not for closure, not for forgiveness, but because sometimes you need to look a ghost in the eye before you can finally bury it. We met at a small diner on the edge of town. She looked older somehow, not in years, but in spirit. The spark that used to make her glow, it was gone. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. I nodded. "What do you want, Rachel?" I needed to see you. I need you to know how sorry I am." I leaned back, watching her. "You said that before." "I know, but this time I mean it." She looked down, twisting her hands.
I lost everything, Daniel. I don't even know who I am anymore. Maybe you should have thought of that before you climbed into his bed." Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. "I know," she whispered. "I'll regret it every day for the rest of my life." We sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you hate me?" I looked out the window. No. Hate takes too much energy. "Then what do you feel?" I said nothing. And it was true. She reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Could we?" "No." Her lips quivered, but she nodded. "I understand." I stood, dropped a few bills on the table, and looked at her one last time. "Goodbye, Rachel." She watched me walk out, tears streaming down her face. I didn't look back. As I drove away, I realized something strange. For the first time in months, I felt calm. The anger, the pain, it didn't vanish, but it loosened its grip. And in that quiet, I decided this wasn't the end. Not yet. Because Jason might have lost his job and reputation, but that wasn't enough. He still had his freedom. He still got to wake up every morning thinking he'd paid his debt. I wasn't done with him. Not yet. When I finally got back to my truck, I just sat there staring at my hands on the steering wheel. They were shaking. I didn't cry. Not then. I just went blank. Like my body refused to process what my mind already knew. She had been with him. The same man who'd stood by me at my wedding. The same man I once called my brother. And she, my wife, had crossed a line that could never be undone.
For days, I didn't speak to anyone. I'd drive around town with no destination, just music playing low, thinking, replaying every little thing that suddenly made sense now. Her sudden shower as before bed, the way she smiled when she got a text, the perfume she started wearing again. All the tiny signs I ignored because I trusted her more than I trusted my own instincts. I didn't tell her I knew. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go pretending. I watched her, studied her. When she'd kiss me goodnight, I could feel the guilt radiating off her skin, but she acted like nothing had changed. She laughed at my jokes, cooked dinner, asked about my day. She was good at lying. Too good. One night, about 2 weeks later, she fell asleep early. Her phone was on the nightstand, face down. Something in me, maybe that last drop of foolish hope, told me not to look, but I did. There they were, messages, photos, late-night confessions that made my blood run cold. She called him baby, told him she missed their nights, promised she'd make up another excuse soon. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a whole secret life. I didn't explode. I didn't throw things or wake her up. I just sat there, in the dim light of the lamp, scrolling through proof that the woman I built a life with had destroyed it in silence. By 3 a.m., I'd packed a bag and left. I stayed in a motel on the edge of town for 3 days, alone, thinking. I went from heartbreak to anger, then to something darker. Clarity. I wasn't going to let her get away with it quietly. She had taken everything from me without flinching, and I was going to make her face it. The first thing I did was call Mark's wife. Well, ex-wife now. She'd divorced him 2 years before, but they still talked occasionally because of their son. When I told her everything, she wasn't even surprised. Just tired. "He's always been that way," she said. "I warned you once, didn't I?" She had. I didn't listen. Over the next week, I planned everything down to the smallest detail. I wasn't going to yell or fight. I wanted her to watch her world collapse the same way she made mine fall apart. We had a small get-together planned for the following weekend. Friends, family, neighbors. I didn't cancel it. In fact, I made sure it happened. I wanted everyone there. That night, everything looked perfect.
The house was clean, the grill was on, music was playing. Sarah wore a white summer dress, her hair curled, that same perfume I used to love. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong. I smiled back. For once, it didn't hurt. When everyone had arrived and the drinks started flowing, I stood up. I held my glass up high. "I want to thank everyone for being here," I said. "Especially my wife, for being the reason we're all gathered tonight." She smiled, thinking it was about her birthday coming up. I continued. "I've always believed marriage is built on trust, on love, honesty, and respect. But sometimes we learn the hard way that not everyone holds the same values."
The room went quiet. She looked at me, confusion growing into panic. I turned to her, my voice steady. "Sarah, while I was away serving this country, you found comfort in someone else's arms. Someone sitting right here tonight." Gasps filled the air. Mark froze, his face pale as chalk. Sarah's eyes widened, tears already welling. "Jason, please," she started, but I cut her off. "No," I said, "you don't get to speak. Not tonight." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the printed photos I'd taken from her phone. "These," I said, dropping them on the table, "are what honesty looks like in my marriage." Nobody said a word. The music stopped. The only sound was the wind outside. Mark stood up, muttered something like, "It's not what it looks like," but nobody believed him. His wife, who'd come to drop off their kid earlier, happened to still be there. She stepped forward, slapped him across the face so hard it echoed through the yard. Sarah fell to her knees, sobbing. "Jason, I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to get caught," I said coldly. "You made your choice, now live with it." I left, walked out as she cried behind me. The air felt different that night. Cold, but clean. For the first time in months, I could breathe. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I sold the house within weeks. She tried to reach me dozens of times, calls, emails, letters, but I never answered. The last message I ever read from her said, "I made a mistake. I still love you." Maybe once that would have broken me. Now, it just made me realize something. Love doesn't excuse betrayal. Months passed. I got my own apartment, started therapy, went back to work. I didn't rush into anything new. I just rebuilt, piece by piece. Then one day I ran into her again, by accident. She looked different, thinner, worn out. Life had taken something from her, too. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You look good," she said softly. "So do you," I lied. We talked briefly. She said she was sorry again, that she'd been in a dark place, that she didn't know why she did it. I just nodded. Maybe she wanted forgiveness. But forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting yourself move on. When I walked away from her that day, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. A year later, I bought a cabin outside Denver. Quiet, surrounded by mountains. I'd wake up early, drink coffee on the porch, watch the sunrise. Sometimes I'd think about the past, but it didn't hurt anymore. It just felt like a story that happened to someone else. People always say revenge doesn't heal you. Maybe that's true. But sometimes exposing the truth is the only closure you need. I never remarried. I didn't need to. What I found was peace. And after everything, that felt like the sweetest revenge of all.